Hello, folks. Thanks for joining us on Head Inside Mental Health, featuring conversations about mental health and substance use treatment with experts, advocates, and professionals from across the country, sharing their thoughts and insights on the world of behavioral health care. Broadcasting on WPVM 1037, the voice of Asheville Independent Commercial Free Radio. I'm Todd Weatherly, your host, therapeutic consultant, and behavioral health expert. But with me today is stress management expert, speaker coach, Reiki master, podcast host, creator of the Calm Process, that's CALM, story to impact mentor, and six-time Amazon #1 best-selling author, Lolita Guarin. Her work is deeply rooted in healing, helping people understand how stress, trauma, and old survival patterns shape their lives and how they can create more peace, resilience, and self-trust. As an immigrant and an adult child of an alcoholic, Lolita's message is grounded in both lived experience and professional insight. After her own health was deeply affected by chronic stress, she came to understand that many people calling managing stress is often survival mode in disguise. The realization that led her to create the Calm Process, a simple but powerful framework that helps people move from overwhelm and burnout into greater clarity, self-awareness, and sustainable success. As a story to impact mentor, I'll ask you about that a little later. She also helps people turn their lived experiences, lessons, and healing journey into meaningful stories, messages, books, talks, and work that can inspire and help others. Through her speaking, coaching books, and podcast conversations, Lolita is passionate about helping people heal old patterns, reconnect with who they truly are, and use their voice to create meaningful impact. Lolita, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Such a pleasure. But now, since you read all of that, what are we going to talk about since you just put everything on the table?
Right. Well, I'm curious about a couple of things. First of all, what is a story to impact mentor?
So,
Tell me a little bit about that.
when I started on my healing journey and then became stress management coach, then an expert, and gave plenty talks and created programs, things. At the same time, I was writing many books. So, as you mentioned in the beginning, I am multiple best-selling Amazon #1 best-selling author, and people start asking me about that, like, "Hey, I see you writing books. How did you do that?" And after 7 clients of mine that they were purely free out of my good heart, I realized that there is a need to help others as well to bring this story into the world and inspire others. And now I am coaching how to bring your story, your experiences in the past into something tangible. So that's why the story to impact was born.
And impact is capitalized. Does it stand for something?
Yes, all of those abbreviations mean, how you get the story, how you put on the paper, how you make an outline for yourself, or how you get the story out. And, every letter means something in the journey for you to become a self-published author. And I am not a publishing house. I believe that it's important not to just give a fish to a person, but to teach them how to fish. And I am very inspired to support everyone who would like to self-publish books. So the moment when they come with me through their journey and they know how to do themselves, they don't need me anymore because they can do that themselves.
Absolutely. And then we've got the Calm Process. To see you've got some of your books back there, Joy Unleashed, and lots on I guess those are training books on the Calm Process. What does Calm stand for? CALM.
So, when I was get through my own process, how to manage stress, and then I started coaching and teaching, I realized that there are quite a few steps that can be put in the system that's easy to remember. So the calm, that's mean, just be calm and carry on, right? Later on, actually, I realized that, wait, the calm is like everywhere. But also it stands for, so let's imagine now someone can think about any stressful situation. And then C stands for control. You need to ask yourself, can you control the situation or you cannot? You cannot control other people. You cannot control the emotions, the actions, the weather. You cannot control politics and everything else that it doesn't look like you can control. But what you can control is your attitude, your actions, your reactions. So when you identify that, okay, I cannot control other person, but I can control myself, then you move to the letter A, that stands appreciation or acceptance. and many things we cannot change. So we just say, you know what, that's life. But also, I believe there is always silver lining in a situation, in any situation. And say, well, there is no silver lining for me. Well, at least you know now what you don't want in life. So you still learn something about yourself. So it's still useful. And then the letter L and M stands in any stressful situation. I think we need to make a list of things that we're already doing. So action steps that we're taking or not taking. And then limiting, that's the L, limiting what does not work for us. For example, I had a client that was we were talking about her stress management things, and she says she runs in the mornings. That's a physical activity, and she loves it so much. And then she told me no, she doesn't like it so much because she thought that she likes it because it's a physical activity, but she hates waking up in the morning. And then I asked her, why are you doing that then? And turned out that by running in the morning and stressing really about that, that's how she honored her dead father, who used to be a runner. So it looks like, hey, we're doing even great things for us, but they may be hurting us. And it's time to stop doing them. But I think that is the key in the whole calm process, is to ask ourselves, why do we do things that we do? Because there's so many things in us that we think we should, by honoring our own old patterns or family patterns or authorities, and that needs to stop for us to change the situation. And then M stands for multiplying what works. We don't get enough credit for things that we do well, and we need to remind ourselves that there are lots of things that we do good in that situation, or general, and has to do with life or stress management, then we need to multiply that. So if you like walking the dog, do it not once but twice a day. And that's what the calm stands for.
Yes, there's a saying. What is it? The Buddhist monks are like, well, if you don't have time to meditate for an hour a day, meditate for 2 hours. Do more of the thing that's
Exactly.
working. I like that. Yeah, we being solution focused is a big part of how we look at the world as well, because people are struck with problems, big problems. Um, and you talk about on your when I read your bio, I was reading about how you come from a pretty stressful family environment, and that led to its own chronic health crisis or a health crisis that you were able to resolve. Can you can you tell us a little bit about that story? Would you be willing to share a little bit
Uh,
about how that all came to pass?
Absolutely. So those who are listening in and already can tell that I have an accent, and you said I'm an immigrant. So I bet there are plenty of thinking, oh, where she's from. I am from Lithuania. So that's a small country in Europe, right next to Germany, Poland, and all that. And yes,
Right.
I grew up in Soviet Union. So my dad was alcoholic, and it was kind of common, really. Depression and drinking, it goes hand in hand. Addiction usually is the thing that helps coping. In
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that we do that really doesn't help us, but kind of help us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my dad was one
Self-medicating.
of
Yeah, for sure.
exactly. So it looks like you're helping yourself, but you're a little bit not helping yourself. And and I am still only one child, so I didn't have brothers or sisters that I can run for a hug, or kind of soothe myself, or somebody will be there for me. My mom did the best she could, of course. I never starved. Always went to school and got good grades and would wash clothes. But my dad was drinking, and he would be okay for maybe 2 days when all angry because he didn't get to drink, and then he finally gets to drink, and then he becomes violent. So because I grew up in that environment, I thought like, well, that's what it is. Because when you're a child, you always think that's all there is. I mean, there is no other reality. That's it. So then you just survive. Then I became, this obsessed with this dream that I will go to United States of America, and was still Soviet Union times. And I was born on 4th of July, by the way.
All right.
So yeah, so
Happy belated
every
birthday.
thank you. So every time the fireworks, it's all for me. Um, I came to the country because, as you heard, there's like a money tree growing. So you just go and pluck the dollars. No, of course, that's a joke.
The
I
reality is
was
a little different when you get here, right?
exactly, but I knew that you have to work hard, and my story really no different from anybody who lives in the same country. It's not about where you're coming from. It's about how much you push yourself, how much you bulldoze yourself to achieve your dreams. And
Hmm.
that's what I was doing. I came and I worked as much as I could, like 60 hours a week, whatever. And of course, there's no good nutrition and sleep, what sleep. And I mean, I was an immigrant in the plan in the place that I can do and achieve if I really work hard at it. And then when my health deteriorated and the doctor said, that's good that you came today, otherwise you will not be alive tomorrow. I figured
Wow.
maybe it's time for me to start thinking, what am I doing here? And the there was no diagnosis of like you have a high heart pressure. Here are the medication for you. No, it was the stress that really derailed my hormones. And any women listening to this will know that means a lot to a body. And the doctor pretty much said, I am stressed and I need to lower that stress levels. But here's the deal. I was like, what do you mean I'm stressed? I am not stressed. I am just going, doing stuff. I'm fine. Um, but then I started looking, what am I doing? And then I started applying stress management bandages. I call them bandages because, all of those things that you hear, oh, you just need to go to yoga class. You just need to write a diary, maybe take a nap and you'll be fine.
You need
Um,
to add things to your life, right? Instead
Exactly. So that's more to do. But also, I was going to that yoga, and I'm standing there in that warrior pose and I'm thinking to myself how much work I need to do tomorrow. So how is that stress management? It's not management. This is just an addition, but I keep on thinking and keep on stressing in my mind, no matter what I do. But of course, it was a great start for me. It helped me to get the grip, and I start learning how to take care of myself more. And I became stress management coach. And that's where the biggest piece in this big puzzle finally came unexpectedly, because I was reading the book about how to get more clients because I was starting my coaching practice. And the author said that she was an adult child of alcoholic. And I was like, wait, there is terminology for that? Apparently there is.
Yes, there is.
And she recommended a book to read, like there's so many books. I got the book, I read it in 2 days. And I realized, wait a minute, that's the cause of a whole problem. It's not about that I was not going to yoga enough. It's not that I was not enough drinking water or not sleeping 7 hours. It was my mental state that coming from a very stressful childhood, my default state was already very stressed out, burnout, hypervigilant. That was me. That was my normal. So natural when the body got more stress, it just couldn't handle it anymore. So that's why I teach and advocate when someone comes to me and they say, help me with my stress management. I immediately ask them, how are your parents manage their stress? Because that's how we learn everything in our lives. It's not only, well, my parents were doctors, so now I'm going to be a doctor. No, it's about every little thing that they did. Did your dad drink to help him manage his stress after work? Was your mom not taking any breaks because women supposed to be martyrs in the family and the women constantly need to give and feel ashamed when she's just sitting down? And that really started this whole big journey for me, realizing that, wow, when somebody told me you need to love yourself more, I thought I'm gonna slap them because what I heard, it was like I'm still not doing enough. And especially in our society, when you really think about it, When you meet a friend or someone that you haven't seen for a while, when you ask them, how are you doing? Most of the time, you will hear back how busy they were, how
Yeah,
much stress they have,
that's the
all the
appropriate
family.
response, right?
Yes. Nobody says, I just had a wonderful morning. I was drinking coffee and then watching the birds and the flowers, and I was just taking a breath. And no, nobody says that because in our society, you have to be productive, otherwise, you'll be excluded. And for human to be excluded from the group means death. So that's how we operate. And it has bigger roots because we're doing this from generation to generation, and this got stopped.
So when you the moment like this realization that you had that the stress came from like this, you read a book and then all of a sudden there's a, there's a terminology for this and everything else. What was the book? And what was the thing that spoke to you the most when, like, what was there was a sentence or there was a chapter in there that was like, ooh, kind of your head explodes with realization, an aha moment. Like, what was it that landed with you heaviest that caused all this change for you?
So the name of the book, it was an old book like written in 70s or something, or like a reprint of something that they had in the title, Adult Children of Alcoholics. Um, the what chapter came that opened all the doors? It
Or
was the whole book.
message, you know?
And it was the whole book. Because I read it in 2 days because everything I was reading, I was like, oh my God, this is me. And like for example, it would say children that grew up in such a stressful environment are people pleasers. We're afraid to say no. And I was like, oh my God, that's me. And even in the work environment, if you have to work for someone to get a check, then if somebody comes to you and say, hey, can you do this for me? You'll say yes. And they will keep on piling work. What happened to me? And every
Yeah.
time I was afraid to say no because then I'm going to be let go from work. That is also people pleasing
Yeah.
because you probably, those who work, they can recognize there are plenty of coworkers around that it looks like they do nothing and they don't stress. But guess what? They still there to still get the paycheck.
You get the same paycheck, right?
It's the same paycheck. So also even with friendships, let's say you have that friend who constantly asking you to do things for them, and you always say yes, well they're my friend, I'm going to do it even if I'm sick.
Right.
That's again, you have no boundaries. And again, what boundaries? There was another thing I was like, boundaries, what does that mean? Because where I grew up, there were no boundaries. And I learned to live no boundaries, emotional boundaries, and even saying no to myself, not tolerating things, not tolerating how people treat me. And then, of course, I came from this environment that I was mistreated and abused emotionally, sometimes physically, and I thought that was normal. So then, of course, I marry somebody who's also emotionally abusing, and then I think this is normal.
The way that's supposed to be because it matches everything I knew from before, right?
Exactly.
Um,
So
it's, it's funny how people, a lot of what happens for folks, and especially in our work, what we see when it gets to crisis time is that a pattern is has started, um, and then it replicates, and it's almost like every time it replicates, it it stacks on some more. This it gets a little more complex, or it gets a little more stressful, and the person gets a little sicker, or they get a little more and kind of deeper into the condition that they're suffering from until finally it explodes. They get to a crisis moment. And it sounds like, there's having a crisis, a health crisis is one of these moments. The body is finally speaks out. It's like, look, I can't take anymore. And gives you a pretty clear message that you need to do something different. Not everybody receives that message, and is then able to do something about it. But the limits piece to me, in your calm process. It's not just limiting what you do or don't do and those kinds of things, but it sounds very much like there's a deep story in your process about limiting the kinds of people that you surround yourself with, limiting, you know, Who are the people that I want to surround myself with? What do friendships look like? What do partnerships and intimate relationships look like? Is there anything in the book that talks about that stuff as well, like that you where you really focus in on how to manage relationship with others? Like, or if you were to tell somebody that's struggling with the same thing, what would you say about managing relationships with others?
Um, I think the what you asked the questions, the other books answer as well. For example, I wrote a book, Stress Management for Adult Children of Alcoholics, that
Mm.
really touch on all the boundaries and relationships as well. And for those who stressed out at work, I published Crush Stress While You Work. It's also full of tips and tricks and anything under the sun that you can use right away. But I want to tell you that the one thing in the calm process that um, doesn't look right in the face, that really makes a huge difference in any stressful situation, how someone handles, is when you know that you do something that doesn't work for you, right? The limiting something that doesn't work. But then asking yourself, where is this coming from? And then, for example, what happened in my case, I realized, oh, wow. So I grew up in this environment and now I'm an adult child alcoholic. So what does that makes me? And that the first step it was realizing it, oh my God, I'm broken. There is no way out for me. Um, then I realized there are plenty of people who are broken on different ways, what we call broken, meaning nobody is broken. Nobody. But also, how do you change something? First step starts from realizing what you need to change. But the biggest, hardest thing for people to make that change is the loyalty. It's the loyalty to old identity. That's mean you're going to become someone else. So, for example, somebody knew you as somebody who wakes up at 5 o'clock in the morning and running, and now you're not going to run anymore. What are they going to think about me? Then breaking loyalties to those old patterns that we learn from our patterns from our parents. When many things that we do, we learn it, especially about stress management. If we recognize that something we're doing that's not working for us is really coming from authorities, and it could be the parents, our teachers, our gurus, somebody who's following some success master, and the master said that you need to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning because the early bird gets the worm, and you are evening person, you are night owl. For you to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning is going to be very stressful. So to break the loyalty to that guru because he knows better, you are just abandoning yourself. Kind of like all over again as you're being abandoned by your parents, emotionally, even physically. So you're really not helping yourself. But how is that you break that loyalty? That's, I think, is the key to any change, and not necessarily doing the calm process or starting a new diet. Any change um, has to include breaking the loyalty. That's something that you are afraid to break. Especially that humans, we belong to the group. We are tribe people, and we learn from early childhood that if we don't please others, if we don't do right, they will not feed us. Hence, we will die. So we will continue the same loyalties when we adults and we are free to be excluded. So that is the hardest thing to implement in having any change. And it takes a lot of courage to realize that those other people that I learned, those patterns are also people and also children, and also maybe learn something that is not me personally. And it's okay to change that.
And it's also, there's a loyalty that we have to the way we chose to understand something. Something happened to us when we were a kid, and that meant this, whatever it is. And then we carry that for decades. And then all of a sudden you're sitting there, it's like, I keep doing this because, and maybe you get the opportunity to reflect long enough to realize that it's coming from something that was in your childhood, coming from a family environment. And you're like, do I need to keep doing that? Is that really mine? I think one of the things that happens in My father passed many years ago. My mom's still around, but when a parent passes, I think it brings to bear a lot of stuff that's just like, hey, even though this person is no longer with us, you still carry some of what they asked you to carry for them, even though they clearly have no need for anyone to carry anything for them anymore, and you're still carrying it. It's like, wow, do I need to carry this? And I can recall an experience of working through something like that where it's like, you know what? I think I'm going to choose not to carry this anymore and set it down. And it was a little disorienting, It was like, wow, that's something I've been carrying all this time. I decided to set it down. I kind of feel off kilter because I'm not carrying this weight. Everything I've built about how choose to carry things has been based on this weight. And now I don't have this weight. And now I'm like, okay, how do I walk? How do I move? Um, did that experience for you when you kind of came across these moments and made some decisions, set some limits and all those kinds of things? How was the transition moment? Like, how was that experience for you? What was the arc of like realization to action for you?
It was scary, because I realized,
Yeah.
okay,
Terrifying,
I
isn't it?
it's terrifying. But so there was I'll tell you the story actually that came to my mind at the beginning of my journey. So every weekend I will see my mother. Um, my dad would work or whatever, but I will go and go shopping with her and have drinking coffee, whatever. And I'm only one child, and this is a foreign country, so I felt like, okay, I need to spend time with my mother. And it became to the point of, what is that you're going to talk about every single weekend? And mind you, there are plenty of daughter-mother relationships that are amazing and that they can talk to each other every single day. That was not my relationship with my mom. And I would wanted to do something else on a Saturday morning, but like, no, I have to do this because I'm keep on doing this, and I'm showing respect and care to her and all this. And then when I got to the point of like, okay, I need to start looking at things that I don't want to do anymore, because you feel in the body when you're doing something against yourself. You can feel
Really
it,
do.
and but then the moment that comes, we have a tendency of abandoning ourselves. And it's like, what do you mean I'm abandoning myself? Everywhere I go, I take myself with me. Right, but how you feel if, let's say, even we are dehydrated, or we're wearing clothes that are too tight, you are abandoning yourself because you're telling yourself, no, it's okay, you're gonna still do it. Like like a parent who tells you, chill, come down, sit down, shut up. And so at that moment I was like, okay, you know what, I really don't want to, like, can we do like every second weekend or something like that? So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna have enough courage to tell her that, how about if we skip tomorrow? Because it was like Friday evening, and I called her and I said, I have some things to do, and can we just not do it tomorrow? I know it's Saturday, that's always our tradition. And she said, oh, thank God. And I was like, wait, what? Well, it turned out that she was thinking that, oh, her poor daughter, doesn't have probably enough, social life. So I'll be there for her and go to the coffee shops and go shopping with her, and I will support my daughter. And here I am. I'm thinking I'm supporting and caring for her. So yes, then we went on the schedule that whatever we feel like it. And that definitely changed a lot. But what does it say? It says that we continuously doing some things that we think is working, but it's not. And another big thing that I realized that I spoke up and I dealt with the parent. Now, any change, especially if we recognize that a lot of things that don't work in our lives comes from following something that came from our parents, it's very difficult to break that loyalty, because in our society and in religion and everywhere else, it says you should honor your parents. You should obey authorities. Um, and you cannot even talk bad about your parents. I remember when my book Stress Management for Adult Children of Alcoholics came out. In every chapter, and in all of my books, I include my personal stories as well. After some, I was gave the speech somewhere, and there's this lady comes to me and she says, "Thank you so much for putting this out there. For the all of my life, I was so afraid to tell anyone that my dad was alcoholic, and you gave me that permission to say, you know what? If somebody else talks about it loudly, I can do the same thing." So I also realized that I can say no or change plans. And the first time when I said no to a project that was given to me, nobody died. The the world just moved on, and I realized, wait a minute. So if I don't like something, I can say it, and we can work on that, and then everybody's happy because we communicated, and I'm happier. And no big tragedy happened. And that's how I learned to gain confidence. And you start small. You start saying no here or there. You start taking breaks. You start identifying things that don't work for you. And you start small, and then it builds to the point that you gain confidence, and it doesn't look like such a big step anymore.
So the story with your mom, and she was like, "Oh, thank goodness she's got a social life. We don't have to do this." That's hilarious. Um, and I expect somewhere along the way you met with resistance with a limit that you set, and somebody didn't like it, or somebody had something to say about it. How did you meet that resistance?
Um, the also realization came to me to understand that all of us are children inside. And I realized that my parents also are children of my grandparents. They also have their own
Right.
insecurities. They also have their own
Generational
wounds.
trauma.
Exactly. Uh, and now when I deal with anyone, and if let's say I say no, or I work on something, or just have in situations like, for example, you go to a grocery store and the cashier is mean. you know, let's just take that example. Like it's so common example. We immediately think like, what's wrong with that person? Like they're supposed to be nice to me. But then we need to ask ourselves, I wonder what happened in their life. Um, you know, what happened? Why do you react that way? Because only hurt people hurt others. We all have our own wounds to take care of, and when somebody comes with pushing back, I always ask myself what happened. And most of the time, it's not even about us, it's about them. The same way as us in any situation when we don't like something, or we're being pushed, or we have that resistance with ourselves or being triggered, we react too. So it's only about us because we all feel from inside.
It goes back to the sea, right? Like, is this mine? You know, do I have, what is the moment? What do I have control of? I have control over how I respond to this person. And I think that the separation is important. If I can separate the experience from and do reflection, like, is this me? Like, is there something I should be taking on here? I also think kind of in a deeper way, if I do have an experience with someone, let's say even if it's the grocery store person, right? Um, but I feel activated by it. It's pissed me off, or I walk out of the store doing the grumbles around, you know. And then I'll get to, at this point in time in my life, I'm old enough to have a practice where it's like, okay, so why are you still carrying that, by the way? What is it that's going on that that person, whether they knew it or not, they flipped the switch that caused you to have this dialogue, this inner dialogue with yourself that's agitated, you know? So what is it that you've got going on that is causing you agitation that this person accidentally stumbled on for you? Thank you for doing that for me, by the way, strange person, stranger in the world. Now I get an opportunity to reflect on those things. And, as simple as it may sound, some of that stuff leads to content that is pretty deep seated and even complex and even groundbreaking. I think that to me, in the stories that you're telling, we get caught up in thinking that significant change, and you're talking about people taking small steps. We get tricked into thinking that significant change requires large actions, and it really doesn't. It really requires some level of intention and awareness, and then small actions towards a goal, just a little bit at a time. We chip away at it. I tell that to people all the time. It's like, well, you know what? Sounds like a problem we're going to have to chip away at. So let's chip away at it. We're aware, but the biggest piece is being aware that it's there. And the more space you create for awareness, the more aware you become. And leads you doing things like creating books and sitting in your office and talking about how people manage stress. um, what made you decide to write a book?
I was a writer since teenage times. I published my first article when I was 14. In Lithuania, I was freelance writer all the way through college. So I always liked to speak. And I remember when I was a child, I mean, teenager and all those, I remember my friend said, tell us a story. And I will say, well, I have, they will say, tell us a movie. Did you see any movie lately? And mind you, like those were like Soviet Union times. So you have like only like 4 channels and everybody watches the same channel. This means
Right.
if there was a movie last night, everybody were watching the same movie. And they're like, tell us about the movie. And I'm like, we watched the same movie, you know that. But you're like, yeah, but the way you say it, it sounds better. So I was a storyteller and I love talking, and I loved writing and creating poems and short stories. And I just been writing and writing. And when I became a stress management coach, I realized that I had a lot of people asking me, so what do I need to do now? Give me a tips. And I'm like, well, first of all, things that will work for you is only the things that you believe working for you. And like I just got tired of telling everybody the same thing. So then I realized I already had
You wrote
plenty
it.
of notes. I already had plenty of notes. So that's how I published the Crush Stress While You Work uh, tips and tricks book. And then, after I went to my adult child of alcoholic, the whole journey, I realized apparently there's a laundry list of the bad things that adult children of alcoholics do, and how dare you, look at you, how broken you are. And it kind of really hurts a little, but then I thought, no, this is good. And I turned those things into superpowers. So my whole book is 25 chapters. In every chapter I talk about one of the dirty laundry list item. Like for example, adults like that don't have patience, right? Because I need to do it right now, right away. And it may be taken as something that is not good because you need to, wait until you can. What's that? Immediate gratification is a bad thing, and all of this. But guess what? The superpower about that is I get it done. I don't sit around and wait until I have inspiration. Like if I feel inspired that moment, that's what I'm gonna do it. So I converted all of those, what looks like a bad thing, into superpowers. And that's how the stress management for adult children alcoholic was born, with the idea of this is what you got, that's what you came from. How about we going to use this for something great? And I keep on writing, and then Calm came up. I have no idea what the next book is going to come up. And of course, I've been participating in plenty of book collaborations as well, where I talk also about stress management and empowering yourself.
Well, Lolita, it has been great to have you on the show today. I'm so glad that we chanced each other's, meeting across the interwebs, that is, and got you on the show so that we could talk about this great work that you're doing and coaching with people. This has been Head Inside Mental Health with Todd Weatherly and Lolita, the Calm Process. WPVM 1037, the voice of Asheville. We'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, Lolita. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Todd.
I feel so lonely and lost in here. I need to find my way home. I feel so lonely and lost in here. I need to find my way home. I feel so lonely and lost in here. I need to find my way home. Find my way home.